Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales, The Brothers Grimm. Bearskin. There was once a young fellow who enlisted as a soldier, conducted himself bravely, and was always the foremost when it rained bullets. So long as the war lasted, all went well, but when peace was made, he received his dismissal, and the captain said he might go where he liked. His parents were dead, and he had no longer a home, so he went to his brothers and begged them to take him in and keep him until war broke out again. The brothers, however, were hard-hearted and said, "What can we do with you? You are of no use to us. Go and make a living for yourself." The soldier had nothing left but his gun. He took that on his shoulder and went forth into the world. He came to a wide heath on which nothing was to be seen but a circle of trees. Under these he sat sorrowfully down and began to think over his fate. "I have no money," thought he. "I have learned no trade but that of fighting, and now that they have made peace they don't want me any longer, so I see beforehand that I shall have to starve." All at once he heard a rustling, and when he looked around, a strange man stood before him who wore a green coat and looked right stately, but had a hideous cloven foot. "I know already what you are in need of," said the man. "Gold and possessions you shall have, as much as you can make away with. Do what you will. But first, I must know if you are fearless, that I may not bestow my money in vain." "A soldier and fear? How can those two things go together?" he answered. "You can put me to the proof." "Very well, then," answered the man. "Look behind you." The soldier turned around and saw a bear, which came growling towards him. "Ho!" cried the soldier. "I will tickle your nose for you, so that you shall soon lose your fancy for growling." And he aimed at the bear and shot it through the muzzle. It fell down and never stirred again. "I see quite well," said the stranger. "You are not wanting of courage. But there is still another condition which you have to fulfill." "If it does not endanger my salvation," replied the soldier, who knew very well who was standing before him. "If it does, I'll have nothing to do with it." "You will look to that for yourself," answered Greencoat. "You shall, for the next 7 years, neither wash yourself, nor comb your beard, nor your hair, nor cut your nails, nor say one paternoster. I will give you a coat and a cloak, which during this time you must wear. If you die during these 7 years, you are mine. If you remain alive, you are free, and rich to boot, for all the rest of your life." The soldier thought of the great extremity in which he now found himself, and as he was so often had gone to meet death, he resolved to risk it now also, and agreed to the terms. The devil took off his green coat and gave it to the soldier, and said, "If you have this coat on your back, and put your hand into your pocket, you will always find it full of money." Then he pulled the skin off the bear, and said, "This shall be your cloak, and your bed also. For on this you shall sleep, and in no other bed you shall lie. And because of this apparel you shall be called Bearskin." After this the devil vanished. The soldier put the cloak on, felt at once in his pocket, and found that the thing was really true. Then he put on the bearskin and went forth into the world, and enjoyed himself, refraining from nothing that did him good and his money harm. During the first year his appearance was passable, but during the second he began to look like a monster. His hair covered nearly his whole face. His beard was like that of coarse felt. His fingers had claws, and his face was so covered with dirt that if cress had been sown on it, it would have grown. Whoever saw him ran away, but as he was always giving the poor money to pray that he might not die during the 7 years, and he paid well for everything, he still always found shelter. In the 4th year, he entered an inn where the landlord would not receive him and would not even let him stay in a place in the stable because he was afraid the horses would be scared. But as Bearskin thrust his hand into his pocket and pulled out a handful of ducats, the host let himself be persuaded and gave him a room in an outhouse. Bearskin, however, obliged to promise not to let himself be seen, lest the inn would get a bad name. As Bearskin was sitting alone in the evening and wishing from the bottom of his heart that the 7 years were over, he heard a loud lamenting in a neighboring room. He had a compassionate heart, so he opened the door and saw an old man weeping bitterly and wringing his hands. Bearskin went near, but the man sprang to his feet and tried to escape from him. At last, when the man perceived that Bearskin's voice was human, he let himself be prevailed on, and by kind words, Bearskin succeeded so far that the old man revealed the cause of his grief. His property has dwindled away by degrees. He and his daughters would soon have to starve, and he was so poor that he could not pay the innkeeper and was to be put in prison. "If that is your only trouble," said Bearskin, "I have plenty of money." He had the innkeeper brought there, paid him, put a full purse of gold into the poor man's pockets besides. When the old man saw himself set free from his troubles, he did not know how to be grateful enough. "Come with me," said he to Bearskin. "My daughters are all miracles of beauty. Choose one of them for yourself as a bride. When she hears what you have done for me, she will not refuse you. You do in truth look a little strange, but she will soon put you to rights again." This pleased Bearskin well, and he went. When the eldest saw him, she was so terribly alarmed at his face that she screamed and ran away. The second stood still and looked at him from head to foot, but then she said, "How can I accept a husband who no longer has human form? The shaven bear that was once here and passed itself off for a man pleased me far better, for at any rate it wore a hussar's dress and white gloves. If it were nothing but ugliness, I might get used to that." The youngest, however, said, "Dear father, that must be a good man to have helped you out of your trouble. So, if you have promised him a bride for doing it, your promise must be kept." It was a pity that Bearskin's face was covered with dirt and hair, for if not, they might have seen how delighted he was when he heard these words. He took a ring from his finger, broke it in two, and gave her one half and kept the other for himself. He wrote his name, however, on her half and hers on his, and begged her to keep her peace carefully, and then he took his leave and said, "I must still wander about for 3 years, and if I do not return then, you are free, for I shall be dead. But pray to God to preserve my life." The poor betrothed bride dressed herself entirely in black, and when she thought of her future bridegroom, tears came to her eyes. Nothing but contempt and mockery fell to her lot from her sisters. "Take care," said the eldest. "If you give him your hand, he will strike his claws into it." "Beware," said the second. "Bears like sweet things, and if he takes a fancy to you, he will eat you up." "You must always do as he likes," began the elder again, "or else he will growl." And the second continued, "But the wedding will be a merry one, for bears dance well." The bride was silent, and did not let them vex her. Bearskin, however, traveled about the world from one place to another, did good where he was able, and gave generously to the poor, that they might pray for him. At length, as the last day of the 7 years dawned, he went once more out onto the heath, and seated himself beneath the circle of trees. It was not long before the wind whistled, and the devil stood before him and looked angrily at him. Then he threw Bearskin his old coat and asked for his own green one back. "We have not got so far as that yet," answered Bearskin. "You must first make me clean." Whether the devil liked it or not, he was forced to fetch water and wash Bearskin, comb his hair, cut his nails, and after this he looked like a brave soldier and was much handsomer than he had been before. When the devil had gone away, Bearskin was quite light-hearted. He went into the town, put on a magnificent velvet coat, seated himself in a carriage drawn by 4 white horses, and drove to his bride's house. No one recognized him. The father took him for a distinguished general and led him to the room where his daughters were sitting. He was forced to place himself between the 2 eldest. They helped him to wine, gave him the best pieces of meat, and thought that in all the world they had never seen a more handsome man. The bride, however, sat opposite to him in her black dress and never raised her eyes nor spoke a word. When at length he asked the father if he would give one of his daughters to wed, the 2 eldest jumped up and ran into their rooms to put on splendid dresses, for each of them fancied she was the chosen one. The stranger, as soon as he was alone with his bride, brought out his half of the ring and threw it in a glass of wine when he reached across the table to her. She took the wine, but when she had drunk it and found the half ring lying at the bottom, her heart began to beat. She got the other half, which she wore on a ribbon around her neck, joined them, and saw that the 2 pieces fit exactly together. Then he said, "I am your betrothed bridegroom, whom you saw as Bearskin, but through God's grace I have again received my human form, and have once more become clean." He went up to her, embraced her, and gave her a kiss. In the meantime, the 2 sisters came back in full dress, and when they saw that the handsome man had fallen to the share of the youngest, and heard that he was Bearskin, they ran out full of anger and rage. One of them drowned herself in the well, the other hung herself on a tree. In the evening, someone knocked at the door, and when the bridegroom opened it, it was the devil in his green coat, who said, "You see, I have now got 2 souls in the place of your one."